Welcome to Building for Others, the podcast about getting beyond the flashy demo and interviewing builders who made AI workflows that people actually have adopted. And today we have Ken Romano, SVP of Product at Stacker, the first content distribution platform built for earned reach. Ken, it is awesome to have you. Where are you calling in from?
I am in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, about a half hour south of Scranton.
How nice. Snow yet or not really?
No, not yet. The leaves are all down and a nice crisp chill in the air, just like Doyle's Patagonia. That would come in handy right now.
Yearly wear here in San Francisco.
Exactly. A requirement, a uniform for Doyle. I'm out in Oakland. We just started to get all the oak trees turning color, so really pretty right now.
Excellent.
All right. Well, Ken, can you just tell us about Stacker and maybe a sentence or two?
I can. I mean, you got the tagline down right. A first distribution platform for earned reach. Best way to think about us is kind of like the AP or Reuters, where we create a newswire that publishers are able to access. The big difference is we source all of that content from brands who have really invested in quality journalism on their side. So they produce the content, we vet it, make sure that we're the quality control for stories that go across the wire. They're not promotional, they're not advertorial. And then we repackage that into a newswire that local publications, like they're in San Francisco and LA, are able to use.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. And sounds like it's something that's definitely required in the space to connect the dots between branded content and just kind of general journalism. So that's awesome to hear.
100%.
You guys are
For
blowing
me,
up,
it's a
right?
lot of what we see is the ability to kind of be the middleman in a way that is helping them out both technically, but also with the quality control.
Awesome.
Sorry, I talked a little bit over you there, Ken, but you guys are really blowing up the last few months, right? Like I was reading about the GEO connection. Can you tell us a little bit that?
We've been working in the SEO space for the past 8 years. We know that our content and the way that we're able to drive a ton of backlinks to brands has always helped them with SEO. I think we are loving the moment that the same things that help with SEO are also helping people with GEO and LLM search. So as we're talking with a lot of CMOs, as we're talking to a lot of marketers, they are all looking for the wins that they can make to get themselves more visible in LLM search. Very, very early days, but we're loving how much people are willing to experiment and test things out.
Very cool. So we know that, one of the things we want to talk about here is one of your most recent product releases, Sparks. But before we get into that, we want to do an AI Rose and Thorn lightning round. So we want to hear a story of one AI workflow that your team's created that you thought would take off, but didn't for one reason or another, and then vice versa. Can you tell us a little bit about one that you didn't really expect to succeed, but then did amazingly well?
I'm going to give you kind of the same answer for both. I'm going to reject the premise of the question and throw you guys off. But one that we thought everyone was going to adopt immediately, they didn't. And then when we kind of repackaged it, they did. So Stacker is sitting on a giant amount of first-party data where we know every single story we've ever distributed, exactly who picked it up, how many page views it got, all of that sort of stuff. And so that's this giant data set that you can mine and learn trends from. So we have always used that in a traditional reporting form. Just think about almost like an Excel spreadsheet sort of thing. And so we actually integrated directly with you guys with LVEX, where we now made all of that data available in LVEX. And so natural language, you could just enter in a question and get it back. And so we rolled it out really quickly to our team and found that absolutely nobody used it because just staring at that blank screen of entering what you're looking for was way too overwhelming. And so when we went back to the drawing board and made it available in Slack so that you didn't have to go to open up another tab, and B, when we gave people a lot of real world examples of you should ask this, you should ask that, then all of a sudden the usage started skyrocketing. So it was a huge lesson for me that it's not just about the tech, it's how you roll it out and explain to people exactly how to use it.
I love that analog because I love that story because it's a really great analog for just using AI in general, especially in the workplace, because oftentimes you're just given, a chat window with whatever model behind the scenes. You're like, get productivity and efficiency out of this, figure out a way to make that work. And, people have a lot of problems painting on that blank canvas if they don't have an idea of what they're going to paint. So I love the perspective of like, well, you thought that would get it, but it didn't. And then you had to fuel it with kind of like real world examples here. Can you just dive one step into the detail? Like, how did you come up with the questions? Was that something that you already had maybe via another report, or was it something where you yourself were working through the like assistant or agent you guys had built here? How did you like give the direction for the rest of the team? How did you come up with those questions to ask it?
I was dogfooding it a lot myself on things that I would always ask our traditional report. Click a couple of drop down buttons, click generate report, and it spits you out a whole bunch of data. So what I was thinking through is how would I ask the questions? That first step was honestly just to make sure that the data was right and that we had tuned everything properly. Because as you guys know, the devil on my shoulder was saying we are giving somebody a giant tool. If they
Mhm.
use it the wrong way, they're going to make really important business decisions based on bad data that I let them query. So
Mm.
first, it was just making sure that the data was accurate coming back. Thankfully, your tech made it accurate, which was a good sign. And then on the other side of it, I just pulled in a couple of other power users and asked them how they typically query the data today and how would they do it if they had a little bit more of a blank canvas and weren't so encumbered by drop downs and radio buttons. And then we just kept iterating from there.
And what is next for this kind of like example in general? Is there somewhere else you want to take it? Do you feel like it's in a pretty good state for the company right now, or
I
is there things
I
you want to fix?
Yeah, ideally right now I want it to be as passive as possible. I want to start training people to essentially set up those reports and get something in their inbox every Monday morning, every Friday afternoon. The recurring and the repeat is a muscle that I really want us to develop more. So we're always looking at the same type of data and it just becomes a little bit of a routine to make sure that we're being as data driven as possible.
And then last question on this, and then I want to ask another one here, just about kind of how you're using AI. Is how did this get placed on your desk? Were you the one that had the idea of connecting these two things? Was it given to you from somebody else? Like, what was kind of the initial spark of an idea for this agent here?
It was funnily enough, it was one of those conversations with my CEO where we were just talking back and forth, and he said, we should do something with AI. And it was kind of like we both left it hanging there, and I was like, yeah, we should. So it was one of
Heard
those.
that
My
one.
style is to then go off for a little bit and like think for a couple of days, wait to see what idea pops up in the shower, talk to a few people. What I knew we wanted to do was start internally.
Yeah.
I did not. We are a platform that is built on trust. Wanted rolling out AI based features to our users. I wanted that to be the last step after we had made all the mistakes internally. So thinking through kind of what data we had available and what data we wanted our team to have better access to, this was kind of the low hanging fruit that was going to provide a lot of value to people.
Awesome. Well, that's a good segue maybe into Sparks in a second, but I just want to ask one more question quickly, which is just who on the team has surprised you since, AI got launched across workplaces? Is there somebody that was unexpected who became a champion or started using this aggressively that you didn't think would?
I think the most exciting thing for me is seeing kind of how quickly someone adopts something. Like they might not have been using it for a while, and then all of a sudden you show them a use case that is really, really relevant to them. And so one of our salesmen on the team or one of our account executives on the team hadn't really been using the tool, was kind of in and out a little bit. And then we showed him how it can actually speed up the prospecting process, how it can tie directly to HubSpot, how it could just save him a ton of time. And in about 2 weeks, he became the most active user on the platform.
Cool.
So very, very excited to see kind of how people, I don't expect everybody to always be using this sort of stuff nonstop every single day. But it's fun to see kind of the arcs and the waves that as people adopt.
Awesome. Let's get over to Sparks. So, how'd you explain that to maybe your mother or your father, making it really simple and approachable for the audience here?
The biggest question we get from brands when they want to syndicate stories is tell me what type of story to write. And in its simplest terms, this Sparks tool tells them what types of stories that they should write.
And
Okay.
can they log in themselves and like click the buttons and get those answers? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So up until now, it was a very services support heavy sort of thing where we have a team of content strategists, and our content strategists would talk to a brand and they would say, "Oh, what types of stories are you interested in writing about?" And then they would also look at our network and all of that data that we have access to in the agent I was talking about before and say, "Oh, looking at all the trends, you should do this type of story. You should do that type of story." And it was beautiful because it has a human element to it. But at the same time, it was not on demand and it wasn't fitting into the workflow that the brands who were writing the stories really wanted. And so now when they log into our platform, we've kind of got a portal that has the ability to submit stories, to get the results of stories. Now there is a whole section that gives them inspiration on what types of stories to write. And so every Monday morning when they log in, they're going to see 4 new sparks. We're starting small. Again, I try to be a little bit risk averse with this sort of thing. So we're starting small. Every Monday morning, they'll get 4 sparks that recommend different types of stories that they specifically should write based on what we know about them, their needs, and based on what we know about the types of stories that perform well on our network.
Okay, so let's get into maybe like some of the high level stuff. So you launched this when?
We launched it, what's today? About 3 weeks ago. Very
And,
new.
and like give us if you're comfortable sharing, can you tell us like what are the usage details right now with it? Like are you tracking how people are using it or how they're operating with it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, the standard thumbs up, thumbs down on was this a good spark? Was this a bad spark?
Yep.
I think we're at about 85% good, which is
Whoa.
where we expected to be. In terms of the usage, a lot of it right now is anecdotal. I don't want to make a ton of quantitative decisions based on 3 weeks of data,
Yep.
but the best feedback that we're getting is the feedback that is either A, this is what I told you I wanted and you gave it to me, or B, it's this was taking a lot of time and now it's not. And so those are the two things that we keep hearing in customer conversations that are telling us we kind of went in the right direction.
Amazing. Let's get into now the details of how this thing was built.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming there's some AI behind the scenes here that's helping you recommend these stories, but maybe not. Can you give us like a little bit of behind the scenes look around how you're making these recommendations?
Sure. So when I say, we launched it about 3 weeks ago, the actual build of building this was about 90 days or so. But the really key thing is all of the legwork behind that 90 days. Like I like to think that we've been working on this behind the scenes for the past year,
You
just because
wait, you mean you didn't like vibe code this on the weekend?
nah, not so much. Not my style, not my vibe. So we did it as a prototype, and then threw that prototype away and gave it to the smart engineers to actually really build it.
Cool.
But we had our content strategy team really documenting everything that they work on, like how they come to the decisions that they come to when they're making recommendations. And so this was very, very much a partnership between our head of content strategy and our data scientists. They just worked in lockstep together on it. So our content strategy team really helped us kind of figure out the algorithm and figure out what type of data we would want to include. And then our data scientists came in and actually built that. So what it looks like is it's built in Claude Code, which was
Cool.
a great tool for us to use. It sits kind of in its own stack a little bit over to the side. And then via an API, we pull all of that data. Wow, the sun's coming out. We pull all of that data into the platform and just continually call the data back and forth between our main platform as well as where all the sparks are living in Claude Code.
And
Depending on how nerdy you want to get, I can go a little bit more into the algorithm.
well, yeah, I'm a little bit curious about really like I'm assuming over the course of the like 3 to 4 months to production that you guys were probably evaluating the articles and understanding quality related to them. Like there's an approach where you could train an LLM to do that. There's another approach where it could just be like, tweaking things here or there. Like how were you guys thinking about making sure that the quality was high or improving over time?
So two main inputs. One input is all of the information that we know about the particular brand that we're working with. This is what they do. This is who their audience is. These are the types of stories that they have typically published. These are their goals. Do they want a lot of reach? Do they want a lot of pickups? The other side of it is all of the data, all of the macro level data across the entire network. Do entertainment stories do better than money stories? Do stories published on a Monday do better than stories published on a Tuesday? So what we did is we kind of fine-tuned all the context in Claude Code. We didn't train our own model. We
Yeah.
just gave Claude a ton of context and real data from the database that is constantly updating to feed it all of that information. Based on that, it then makes recommendations of sparks and recommendations that we would give to each individual client. Those recommendations are then fed through kind of its own recursive, now self-evaluate yourself. So it's kind of our reasoning step of you as the AI recommended this, go back and prove using data why this is a good recommendation. And so it kind of self-polices itself. Once it gets past that, then it goes out into the world. So 3 weeks ago, we felt comfortable enough releasing it out to the world. Before that, we were doing daily testing with our content strategy team, where we would have it spit out the recommendations, and our content strategy team would manually go through and say, this is a good one, this is a bad one, good one, bad one. And then between them and our data scientists would kind of continually refine that prompt for Claude.
It's a prompt refinement. That's how you adjust the
Yes,
input output
exactly.
quality.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing ongoing. So now that we're launched, we've got two main mechanisms. One is thumbs up, thumbs down, kind of feeds back to the algorithm whether it was a good recommendation or not based on what the user has told us. Thumbs up, thumbs down. But
Yeah.
also, we are still on a weekly basis taking a sample of every Spark that's produced and having our content strategy team go through it and just make sure that we've got that human eye on it.
Was there any AI involved in collecting what you know about the customer? So you said you
Not
built these profiles, right?
Yeah, the profiles are pretty straight SQL queries from our database. So I would say
Okay.
no fancy AI there.
Yeah.
But the SQL query is getting pulled into Claude, and then Claude's able to analyze it from there.
Because I
I
read
can
about these.
imagine that that when you're releasing something like this, actually, it's a good analog for just what we see on the LVEX side. Oftentimes, when you create an assistant, there's a little bit of like politics involved because some people could be scared about using
Mhm.
something that is driven by AI. I'm curious, like with this, going with content creators, editors, journalists, was there any like hesitation that you saw around, them being able to see what you guys are recommending they create, or was it pretty like open arms to this type of technology?
I want to give our team a lot of credit because there was absolutely no, this is a bad idea. We should never do it. I'm going to politic and try to kill this project, which I've seen in plenty of other companies that I've worked at. We saw a lot of, I'm a little bit nervous. Can you address X? And we
Yeah.
would work with them to address that. So some kind of healthy friction and some healthy hesitation, I would say.
And since you released, it sounds like the feedback, I mean, you said like 85% thumbs up. So it sounds like the customer feedback has largely been super positive around this.
Exactly. And then that also helps us internally. The other thing that we were really conscious to do is not make this any sort of open-ended chatbot. I did not want us to have to worry about every single thing that someone might ask off the top of their head. I
Yeah.
didn't want them to be able to submit an idea and have us make recommendations based on that idea. So in our first iteration of this, it is very much in Stacker's control. Here's 4 recommendations per week that you're going to get every Monday. No sort of interaction back and forth. And so it's a pretty safe box to be in to start.
It sounds like this ties back to the initial experience too, where you gave people the open access to the database. They're like, I don't know what questions to access to ask this assistant. And then you kind of learn from that. And that sounds like that was applied here too, where it's like, we need to make sure things are actionable for our customers, not just give them access to a chatbot to ask, what should I write about?
Exactly. And you also know, I mean, we're all humans, and you know that someone's going to go in and try to like prove the AI is wrong and try to, find all the problems with your system. So we just eliminate all of that stuff. We might get there eventually, but for right now, because so much of our business and our product is built on trust, we're being very, very surgical with where we apply AI and where we don't.
Right. So what is next on the roadmap for Sparks? Where you guys want to take it next?
Couple things we're looking at is integrating it a little bit more through the production process. So today you can upload a story, you upload the story, it goes to our editorial team for them to send any edits. What I would love to see and what we're starting to kick the tires on is almost like Clippy from back in the day, like little recommendations of this story might do well if you publish it on this date. Or, hey, this is a really good idea that you might want to localize specifically for the San Francisco metro area. And so any little insights in the course of the production process to kind of surprise and delight the brands that we work with and give them some suggestions on what they should do, that will make it a little bit more embedded throughout our entire platform rather than just one place you click over to see a recommendation.
Super interesting. And that is then maybe like opening the door a little bit more to having it be more flexible free for people to ask stuff.
We'll see about that. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know about that one just yet. That'll be a great hackathon project, and it'll be a great way to get a couple of people playing around with it. I'm not going to race to that one just yet, though.
Cool. I want to hear one story, if you have it, an anecdote from one of your customers around using a Spark recommendation. And then I want to get to some advice that we can share with the listeners here around how you've turned both something internally and externally into successes. But let's start with maybe like a success story around a client that has used Sparks.
The best ones that I've heard so far are from one of our clients in the healthcare space. They do a lot of stories around supplementation that you can take to increase longevity and things along those lines. And so the best feedback we got was that the quote was, these are almost exactly the types of stories that we typically write. And so what it told me was, we're not sending them on a wild goose chase. We're just giving them a lot more inspiration to the types of stories that they already want to produce, but maybe need a little help in the ideation process.
Right. And probably confidence too, that if that's already in their head, they can just go. They don't have to like
Exactly.
go around it.
The robots were in your brain and they told you, go with your gut.
Awesome. Amazing. And so let's get to some advice here. So, what would you share to listeners of this episode around making something work internally successful, which you did with the database assistant, and then also obviously with Sparks, turning something that, was an idea into now a full product launch? Is there any overlap between the two that you think is like important to share with the group, or just even individually pieces of advice you would recommend to this audience?
So much of the success is in culture change and being open. What I have found is that this is the sort of thing that just cannot be top down. If you can do not focus on trying to get the entire company to adopt it right away. Find your champions who then are going to tell their friends and their peers. I'll give you an example. A couple of months, myself, my CEO, others had been talking about the power of AI and what we should be doing. We have been doing that for months. I'll give a shout out. I brought in David Cohn, who works over at Advanced Local Media. And I said, hey, can you just come talk to our team and tell them what you've been building at Advance? He came in and spoke for like 25 minutes. And within 10 minutes, I had 3 Slack messages saying, okay, how can I get started? And it was like, the minute you hear it, it's almost like, when your parents tell you to do something,
Yeah.
you're not going to do it. But when your friend tells you, you are.
Yep.
So try to find those opportunities where you can get peers talking to peers rather than it being some sort of corporate edict that you have to or should use AI.
Amazing. Last question for you. Is there a podcast that's relevant to this that you think people should be listening to?
Is there a podcast that's relevant? I would say the things I have learned the most from, which might be a little cliche at this point because so many people are using it, Lenny's podcast.
Yeah.
Lenny's newsletter does a great job. I think our data scientist who was working on Sparks got a ton of inspiration about doing AI evals from that podcast and like how to build in that reasoning step in the process. So that's a great one to just get really, really tactical advice, particularly if you're trying to teach yourself as you go, which so many of us are doing.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. Congrats on the success of Sparks. It seems like it's really sparked. Sorry, I had to do it.
All
And
right, we're all doing it.
we're really
It was
excited
right there.
to follow the progress of it moving forward.
Excellent. Good to talk to you guys. Thanks.